I listened to Lemonade probably 7 million times.
I didn't know the standard for what makes something great is Rachel's listened to it a bunch of times.
Yes. Yes, it's how the Grammys are chosen.
Oh, is that right? I've
Yes,
always
it
wondered.
is.
Oh, well, that's good to know.
You always underestimate me.
Don't make me the guy who hates Beyonce. I'm just saying, there's so much good music. Let's not every time Beyonce does it. Well, Beyonce does a reggae album. Reggae will still be terrible because it's the worst music there is.
Okay, you just want to go for Taylor Swift next? Let's just knock them all out and get all the hate mail now.
Hi, Rachel.
Hi, Mark Elliott.
How are you?
I feel like it is the end of a school year and every day is a week.
Yeah, I agree. Lots of budget talk right now. And speaking of budget, I still can't believe we're not canceled. Sorry.
Not that we have a big budget.
I know it's no. And, I really hope that sometime soon somebody gives us a custom theme song for the show. It would really be great. So for those of you who are watching and listening, Rachel continues to text me with updates from our favorite show, Paradise. If you are watching Paradise and you want to drop some comments in wherever you're listening or watching, do it because it's a super awesome show and I love talking about it. And Rachel, you finished the season, right?
I finished season 1 a few nights ago, and I am having a hard time finding shows. If you remember our episode with Corey Horton and the reality shows or White Lotus, I give it a good college try, and they're not sticking. And Paradise, from the first episode, I was hooked. What a compelling storyline. One of the lead females who plays Sinatra, she actually was on Law and Order. I think it was Criminal Intent, and it was the years that Jeff Goldblum was on. And I was fascinated by, first of all, Jeff Goldblum plays it so low and slow and quirky. And so then I was watching the series Paradise and I kept thinking, I know this woman. And I think it's Juliet Nicholson is the name. And she was his partner detective. And they had such good chemistry. I still think about it.
I was just looking it up. Sorry. That's why I'm looking over here.
Go for it.
Julianne Nicholson. So I just saw a preview of a TV show series called Dance Moms, and she's in it. She's a dance mom. And it was so wildly different from the character she plays on Paradise that it cracked me up. I'm like, that is not her. There is no way that is her. But yeah, she's Dance Moms.
So Sterling K. Brown, last episode sets up, I'm certain that there's a season 2. You were uncertain.
No, I think there will be. It's just and we actually never finished talking about this. Will it be, well, I don't want to give it away. Where will it be will be the question, I think.
Yes.
So that's my piece.
So I'm spreading the word about this. You've addicted me. And got a text just before we started the recording from Don Wolf, and he's hooked. They just did the evacuation episode. So shout out, Don, like you're in a good club right now. This is an amazing show. For those who are catching up, it's Paradise and it's currently on Hulu. It's got some really great actors. Julianne Nicholson among them. James Marsden is amazing. Sterling K. Brown.
It's awesome. It's just amazing.
Worth a watch. Worth a watch.
Although I just am starting Murderbot on Apple TV, and I'm 3 episodes in, and it's pretty funny. It is also a cast of sort of comedic, sort of serious, and sort of sci-fi actors, and it has Alexander Skarsgård as a security bot that names itself Murderbot, but doesn't ever quite get to the murder piece, at least in the episodes I've watched so far.
I like all the Skarsgårds, so that will likely end up on my list.
Yeah. I think I kind of want to jump right into our guest, if that's okay with you. And I will do a little introduction. So our guest today is Alan Miedema. Alan is was, I should say, a very long time board member for ACPE, a very long time employee for the North Shore School District, and is recently retiring or announced his retirement from both. 33 years at the North Shore School District, 14 years on the ACPE board. But the real question for Alan as we get here is, how many articles of ACPE clothing do you currently have in your possession?
I thought you were going to say how many. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. I thought you were going to say how many do I have on right now?
Well, I'm going to go with no less than 5. So
no, I only have one on, just the quarter zip, which Mac from Beaverton and I both agree we needed to have at the conference this year. We did not have. That was an oversight. No, I don't think it's any coincidence that the first year Sherry's not running the store, we don't have the quarter zips. Maybe
I hope you put that in your evaluation.
Yeah, I'd put that in the evaluation I never fill out every year.
Set an example.
I actually changed my T-shirt because I thought I can't be on the broadcast and just be adorned in like I'm an ACPE cosplayer or something like that. So I just have the one on.
You should have seen the last episode.
I've got a T-shirt from 2002 though. That's the oldest one I've got. And I've got the ACPE belt buckle. I got the coasters. I've got the bolo tie. What else? I've got Anna threw away my bowling shirt, not the one we got this year, but the one from years ago, which is probably good to call because that thing could spontaneously combust. It was like super polyester.
So, Alan, what's the one piece of ACPE gear that you were not able to get into the wardrobe rotation during your time on the board? Maybe something about the Highlands.
Oh, Morlock and I were always big advocates of the ACPE kilt, which Rachel, you submarined every single time we brought it up, which I thought was that was unnecessary. I don't know why you got to be like that.
I mean, Joe did buy the wardrobe, I guess, for a board this year. So how he even got put in charge of that is beyond me. And B, how he didn't sneak a kilt in there, at least for you and him.
I know. I agree, Mark. I thought that was a given that I was going to kilt this year. I did not. I will tell you, I have friends, some of which I spent the weekend with, that have nothing to do with ACPE. Every year after the conference, they want to know, like, what's the new gear? What's the new thing? So this weekend, I was with them over by Port Orchard and pulled out the Letterman's jacket, and they were very pleased. My daughter has found ACPE gear in thrift shops.
No.
Which makes my heart a little sad.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of goes back to who was the Oregon State football coach just a few years ago who took a job somewhere else. And that day they found, I think it was Oregon State, they found all of his team gear at Goodwill that day. It just dumped it off.
Yeah.
That sounds like a Husky coach.
Speaking of football, but a different style of football, Alan, we know that we had to pull you away from something near and dear to your heart.
Oh my God. Yeah. The Sounders. Yeah.
Right?
So let's see. Right now it's 80. It's 90 plus one. They're in stoppage. I don't know how many minutes of stoppage. We're up 1-0 over San Diego. So yeah. So we'll see how it goes. Jesus Ferreira got his first goal tonight, which I'm very pleased about.
So who's playing quarterback?
Do you want me to kick him out from the stage, Alan? We can just take it from here.
Every man a lewd. Every man a rube.
Sorry. I could talk about this later, but continue, Rachel.
So this is the segue. You have titled yourself tonight the #1 country music fan, Mark, even though Alan and I are going to pick that apart here in a moment. For those of you new to the Plugged In podcast, we normally do a little banter and then some like opening questions. A lot of times they'll involve pop culture, music in this case. And because I know that Alan likes some rockabilly and some Dale Watson and some good old country and country rock crossovers, and because Beyonce has single-handedly Cowboy Carter made country music cool again and ushered in.
It never stopped. Waylon and Willie made country cool again.
I won't argue that, but
because I'm right.
Waylon and Willie. I mean, we can talk about all the greats, but Alan, who's your favorite, or who would you rattle off as the female country crooners who are the best?
I don't know if I can say who the best are, right? Because there's classics like Loretta Lynn, right? So we can do there. But I'll say the ones I'm listening to the most right now are always Lucinda Williams, because Lucinda Williams is Lucinda Williams. I listen to, even though she's not country, I listen to Jenny Lewis and the Watson Twins' Rabbit Fur Coat album a bunch, including this weekend again, which I'll just say, if Jenny Lewis is doing something, you should listen to it because it's going to be interesting. And the one I'm listening to currently that I haven't heard of before, but I like a lot now, and she's going to be at a festival that I'm going to be at in Oregon later this summer, is Sierra Farrell.
Is that the Farewell?
That's the Farewell. I'm going to that.
My neighbor.
Yeah, but who do I really like? I mean, who would I listen to all the time? I mean, Emmylou Harris, right? I mean, if Emmylou Harris is doing the movie phone talk through, I'm going to go call that up and see what time movies are playing because she's amazing. Yeah. And Linda Ronstadt. Yeah, and Linda Ronstadt, because holy smokes, Linda Ronstadt is better than you remember her being. Yeah, go on.
You just mentioned you're going to go to a festival this summer that is right by Rachel's house. Rachel, did you get an invitation to go to this festival with Alan?
Rachel has gone to music shows with me before.
I have.
But you're going to one right by where she lives.
Yes. I may
Incredibly.
actually already be going. So
There we go. We'll
Yeah.
go watch Marty Stewart and Sturgill together.
But I do want to come back to the Beyonce thing, right?
Yes.
So when Beyonce's album came out, it was 2 years ago, a little before 2 years ago. And, Coachella, Stagecoach, the big, huge pinnacle conferences for a particular type of music, it's all about special guests, right? So they have the people they published this year. I would say the fantastic special guest was Mumford and Sons that I got to see, which was terrific. But the year before, the security people were even spreading the rumor that Beyonce was there. And everybody was freaking out because you had your group of, there's no way in the world I'm going to go see her. She's not country music, blah, blah, blah. And then there was all the young kids who were like, I can't wait to see Beyonce, who was not, in fact, there. But it does lead me to say that one of the special guests that year and then had a full set was T-Pain. And T-Pain is amazing, sings so well, and that crossover is happening quite a bit. And, like it or not, I think there's, I don't know, like old country and, I don't know, pop country, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah. And Lucinda Williams, I want to touch back on Alan's Steady Listen. Oh my gosh. Probably the song that I think exposes her vocals the best and her style the best is Righteously.
Oh, yeah. That's good tune. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
If you listen to Lucinda, you realize like a lot of people have done her stuff, right?
Absolutely.
Right? And you hear it. And like the whole album, Car Wheels on a Gravel Road, is like a perfect album. I will insist that is a perfect album. There's nothing not really good. And there's some stuff on the album that's just flat out great.
No
The song
argument.
Jackson is absolutely heartbreaking.
Yes. So I have questions for Alan. But
Okay.
before that, Alan, what we're going to do is just a quick recognition and thank you for honoring a few of our Diamond sponsors each of these episodes as we're coming off of the conference. The Diamond Studios this year were really unique. I think all very well trafficked. And yeah, a lot of fun. We had the casino table back, lots of good things. So a big thank you this evening to HPE, Lightspeed Systems, and Pacific Office Automation. We're glad that you were with us this year and really appreciate your support of our little baby conference that we all love very much. So Alan, 33 years at North Shore. Were you born as a CIO?
No.
Wow.
No, I didn't even touch a computer until I got into college, and then only did that. Well, yeah. So I grew up Marysville, Arlington, Everett, kind of rolling around between there. Graduated high school without ever talking to a guidance counselor because I just wasn't going to go to college. It just wasn't my plan. And then spent a little time, about half a year, doing a little manual labor. And somebody told me, you should go to college. So I thought, I am going to go figure out how the heck you go to college. So I went to WSU, only school I could get into because I didn't take any of I didn't want to go. I was determined to go to a 4-year college. I knew I hadn't taken any of the tests except for Washington pre-college tests. So it had to be in the state of Washington, and I could go to WSU. So I went to WSU, where I met my wife on the first day of school. So that was fortuitous that I went there.
Oh my
And
gosh.
then I only took a computer class because my roommate was taking a computer class and I had a hole in my schedule. So I took a computer class and then started writing code for Boeing. After I graduated, I started writing code for Pacific Northwest Bell when they existed. Then went commercial fishing up in Alaska because I wasn't liking what I was doing. Went back to school, got my graduate degrees, and then started teaching. And so that was like 92. I started teaching. And then did that for 8 or 9 years, taught high school mathematics. That was pretty fun. And then went downtown to work on some special projects, help implement some information systems, do some of that kind of stuff. And then just one thing rolled into another. And next thing you know, I'm director of technology. And Terry Hippenhammer talked me into going to ACPE. I ended up on the board. And that's it. And now I'm here.
33 years in a blink.
Yeah. It was pretty fast.
Yeah.
Pretty fast.
So,
A lot of good people at North Shore. I mean, if there's anything that we do well at North Shore, it's hire smart people, at least in the technology department, and then try to stay out of their way and let them do good work.
my favorite style of leadership. So 33 years is a long time to move through that process. And half of it, or almost half of it, was leading technology. So you rode the wave of quite a few technological revolutions.
Yeah, easy for you to say.
Easy for me to say. What was the thing that, if you were telling your friends each year in Port Orchard, if you were trying to two things that really defined or were the biggest things that you managed in your career, do you have a sense of?
That's an interesting question, and I'm gonna forget and miss things. Right, I would say one of the huge things. This is kind of famous at North Shore is when the iPad got released. I mean, we had just passed a technology levy, and I'm knocking on wood because they're going out for another one here pretty soon. And we thought we had a pretty good idea of what kind of computers and devices and things we were going to get for kids. And literally, like as we closed the books on that process and thought we were going to go buy a bunch of laptops and desktop computers, iPad comes out, and it was, holy macaroni, that's changing things. Now, I would say the influence of the iPad now has kind of peaked. For me, it's kind of peaked and waned, right? It's more of a kid tool, but I would say accessibility and mobility, yeah, it really changed, I think, our expectations for computers and also the ease of use, right? Because it's just stupid easy to use that thing. You don't need to know anything and you can use that. I would say other big one, Chromebooks coming out. I know there's people who love and hate Chromebooks, but I'd say the affordability of that, I'd say that enabled one-to-one to be achievable for people. Super easy, not a whole lot of repair. You buy a new one for the most part. And that was a game changer. For districts who probably couldn't afford to do a one-to-one, Chromebooks, you can afford to do a one-to-one. And then I would say the other big one, of course, is just ubiquitous wireless. Every place you go, this idea that every place I go, I'm going to be connected. I'm going to have access to things. Now, I know that's not true for every kid in every situation, but it's pervasive. Like you got to work to not be connected.
I mean, it gives us the ability. Yeah, it gives us the ability to focus on those families and those students more closely than we would be able to if it wasn't so ubiquitous, like you said.
Yeah, it's like a solvable problem, right, Mark? I mean, the idea of how am I going to connect these kids? We saw this during COVID was, okay, hotspots. I'll get 1 billion hotspots and put them out there, and it won't be great connection, but it'll be possible. It's like things became possible with some of those technologies.
Now, I kind of want to come back to, you pointed out, I will say iOS because, the first iPod Touch that came out was like the iPhone, and our good friend Dr. Morlock, when he was in Canby, was like the guy from Apple, who that was his bread and butter. And the iPad, at its size was pretty revolutionary. The Chromebook, I think a lot of us thought, oh, this is just a cheap laptop, why do we want this? But I mean, the proof is in the pudding. I think those are things that had immediate impacts really quickly and opened up some eyes. I know I have my couple of things in the back of my head, but what are some things that when you look back over your time in education that slowly kind of made such a massive impact without it just hitting you in the face, and you look back on it now and go, wow, like when did that happen? Or something like that.
Oh, that's an interesting question. Things that were so well, really, Mark. I think of myself as such a visionary that I'm never surprised by things. So that might be a little difficult for me to answer. Stuff that slowly built into something bigger than it is. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I wonder about this. Maybe I'm alone, but when I think about what we've moved to SaaS model.
Oh, that's a good one.
Oh, yeah.
That's a really good one.
Yeah.
And it's not even just SaaS. It's everything as a service now, right?
Yes, right. And suddenly, I don't know if everybody else had this moment, but suddenly we're like, do we still need this data center? Because it's like all of a sudden it's like you're not paying attention, and suddenly you're like, do we only need like half a rack? Yeah, I feel like that was one. And so those SaaS models were attractive to me early on because I could focus on the analyst layer, which is most important to folks in the district, than like that we've got 4 employees running a server farm and a systems stack. So that's the one though that all of a sudden I was like, ooh.
Yeah, look how much money we're spending in subscriptions, because we're doing budgets right now. And we look at how much we spent 4 years ago. I'm not going to give a number, but it's got to be 80% higher today, and we're planning for a 10% increase next year. And I said that's probably not enough just in subscription costs. Which is
moving to subscriptions. You don't buy anything anymore. Everything you're doing is is a service which kind of freaks the people in purchasing out sometimes. Like they can't quite get their head around the idea that, well, we're not buying anything here. It's all a service that we have here. But Rachel, I think the idea of everything moving up to the cloud or some kind of off-prem, we were all building out these server farms, right? We were all like, we were getting ready to blow a wall out of the side of the building to expand our server room. Seriously, we were. And then we're storing boxes in that space because we don't have anything in that room. I mean, the room doesn't overheat anymore, not because we fixed the HVAC in there, because there's just not that much going on in that. And we were super late adopters on it. I mean, we were reluctant. Then we got our ransomware attack in 2019. And that pushed us over the edge to say, we got to get it all out of here. We can't have anything.
You know, there's a really interesting, we should have a channel in the Discord of what your data centers used to look like, because I could talk about the old shower at the old gym at Olympia, that it was in a shower and there was still soap in the soap dishes from the 70s, I think.
That's some good
and
soap.
it was, because it was so hot in there that it was just like cracked and it looked like a desert. But something I've talked to other districts about and never actually pulled the trigger on myself is a lot of people did build out big data centers, and doing a little colo isn't a bad thing with other school districts. Just making a partnership and sharing rack space with each other is not a bad thing, because I think we'd probably do it for free. I can't speak for everybody, but
in Oregon, we're working on kind of closing this ring of high-speed connections with our ISP partners. And the dream is, Jeremy Peetzold at Clackamas ESD has had this dream for a while, that we essentially do a round robin of our backups, our offsite backups.
Like around the whole state?
Well, yeah. So I think probably like out to Intermountain ESD, where Nick Lapp is and where Sherry formerly was in Pendleton. And then like down to me, and then over across to Eugene and up the valley to the metro area, and staging offsite backups.
Even little tiny places like Suislaw, like Chris Robichaux.
Rochambeau.
What the hell? Is this a bit?
That would be Chris Robotham, Mark.
Thank you.
Oh,
Yes,
not
thanks,
Robichaux.
Chris.
Okay.
Yes. Fan of the show, Alan.
First of all, Jeremy needs better quality dreams. I mean, if that's his dream, he's got to pick his dream game up, because that's not a great dream, Jeremy.
It's not bad though.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Jeremy has more dreams than that, but
I don't
we
want to
have
hear about
excess
Jeremy's
rack
dreams.
space. And one of the things we
Yeah, that's
need
true.
is the 3-2-1, whether you like the 3-2-1 strategy for backups or not, whether you believe in it or not. That idea of having a couple of different places and ways to do it is a way that we can use that open space, and it really just depends on the quality of the connection between the sites. And then if they're really good, then you can start thinking about it for your disaster recovery as well, not just like a cold backup space, but what happens if you're in a worst case situation, and how quickly can you essentially build a new environment and pull that data back in.
It makes me
You
almost
also use
wonder.
it as a squash court in the meantime.
Well, it gave me a thought, but I don't want to really talk too deep on it now. But I do want to share the one I was thinking about, that it's kind of hit me every year for the last few years, is streaming video. Like,
Yeah.
And Alan, we were teachers, and I had a collection of, VHS videotapes in my classroom, and I owned those. And then our library had a collection of videotapes that you could check out, and we owned the rights to those. And now I've had to talk to teachers quite a bit about how our society made the leap from physical media to streaming video so fast it left schools behind.
Yeah.
It honestly did leave us behind. And now, you have teachers who are saying, I should get to use my Netflix account, when it expressly says you cannot in their terms of service. Any of those streaming media companies say that. And so that is one that has moved quickly and quietly in a way that everybody has accepted the technology and they like how it works. And it puts us in a bind, because it's difficult for us to, comply with the terms of use and all those things.
It does, and that's an interesting one to bring up, Mark, because I think that went hand in hand with networking just getting better. I mean, when we first started streaming, it was like you'd hope that things would stream well. And if it was 15 minutes long, it wasn't going to stream for the whole 15 minutes. Somebody doing somewhere else in the building was going to screw your video up. But now it's like you can run a decent video off your phone and just mirror it up to the screen. It's So that tech has gotten so good, and the amount of material that's out there that you can access has gotten so accessible. That was slow, and then bam, it's everywhere. I mean, you don't buy media anymore.
Right. And it's something I hope, and I really hope, I know they're not going to listen to this. I hope the big streaming people listen to this episode and go and realize that academic institutions need access to some of that stuff. We need academic accounts so we could legally stream this material that our teachers want to use. And, you know, we've gotten to a point where and I think most of us do this as well. We block Netflix, Hulu, Disney because we just have to. We can't. Everyone just is like, I can justify why I can do this, and we're like, no, you can't. You know, we
Well,
have
the
to.
other, I'll just say, as a former classroom teacher, the other reason I want it blocked is it's used as a reward in classrooms.
Yeah.
It makes me insane. I don't care. Watching Mulan in Spanish is not appropriate classroom content, right? I mean, it's just that's you taking a day. I'm saying this as a teacher and also somebody who's retiring, so I don't care. That's you taking a day off. That's not you teaching a kid anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another reason why you block that stuff.
And then YouTube would be in that same window, right? Of just the channels that are educational, where you can find good content to support lessons from different voices, different ways of thinking. It takes work to curate your playlists as an educator or even a technology leader, right? Who's teaching things. I think about it in contrast. Do you remember, was it Discovery
Yeah.
United
Yeah.
Streaming? Those
Mhm.
those in our region at least did not take off like wildfire. There was professional development built around it, and how you create your account and log in, and how you build your library. And then kind of in that same window, YouTube came along and went to billions of videos, it feels like, in a blink of an eye. And
Mhm.
and then some really great education creators starting to
Right.
add there in the past 15 years.
And I would add to that, to Mark's point of things that have taken off, is that ability to stream just basically anything you want, find it someplace and stream it, has also outpaced the ability for educators to figure out how do we have a curriculum within our school district when teachers can really bring in anything they want, whether it fits the curriculum or not. How do we as an organization make sure that material that we're presenting to kids is in alignment with the curriculum that we've got in the organization? Because if somebody wants to go off board at the technology level, I cannot possibly block everything that people can get access to. You can find a different way to get people on the bus to stay in track with what we're trying to do as an educational institution here. It's very complicated. AI does the same thing, I think. At the district level, we oftentimes think that we have authority and control far exceeding what we actually have. You issue all the edicts you want on what you can and cannot do. In the classroom, you close the door, different things happen.
Yeah.
So to your
That's why
point,
professional development is super important.
just out of curiosity, because I know in the past we've said, there's so much digital content created per day or per year or whatever. As of now, in 2025, we are producing 402.74 million terabytes every day of digital content, which is
That has involved a cat doing something.
that's just all re-releasing. But I did, and I don't want to get sorry. This made me think of a Smartless episode that I was listening to, which was I didn't know them so much. Pam Abdi and Mike DeLuca, who work for Warner Brothers, they just very quickly got into the topic of streaming wars. They were like, yeah, everybody's doing these streaming wars. And they made a comment and they said, nobody's doing streaming wars. None of the major, Hulu, any of them. Netflix won this years ago. Netflix won the streaming wars. But I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, didn't Netflix start in Tacoma? I think it started in Tacoma. They had like an old building. They had like an old library or something across from a post office. And they would just wheel the DVDs in wheelbarrows across the street to the post office. And because that was when Netflix was only DVDs. And you just had a subscription to get their poorly populated DVD collection. But
And the red boxes, the red vending machines came after that, right?
Right. Yeah, this was the resealable. They came with resealable sleeves and envelopes, and then you had to mail everything back and forth.
Oh,
It
that
just
would
was
be fun
funny.
if that was a Tacoma thing.
I think it was.
Tacoma's like the seat of a lot of good pop culture.
I don't
Brown
know
and
about that.
Haley's.
Sir Mix-a-Lot talked about not the greatest parts of Tacoma.
Hey, Tacoma's having a renaissance, man. I'll tell you right now. Tacoma's doing pretty good. I had some good coffee in Tacoma last week at Olympia Coffee. That's pretty decent.
Oh, yeah.
So you went and got Olympia coffee in Tacoma instead of going to Olympia to get the Olympia coffee?
I was in Tacoma. I wasn't going to drive down to Olympia. I'm going down the street and I see it and I think, hey, I'm going to go get some coffee because
The Olympia coffee
I
roasters.
wanted
Okay.
to.
For those who
Yeah,
don't,
it's pretty good.
I work in Olympia. Olympia kind of turns its nose up to Starbucks. Like Starbucks is not so welcome. They're everywhere, but they just, if you're really from Olympia, you either drink Batdorf and Bronson's, which is just an amazing coffee
That's a
roaster,
good spot. That's a good
or
point.
Olympia coffee roasters. You can get like a $12 glass of or cup of drip coffee because it's the one that a cat ate and then partially digested the bean.
Yum.
It's delicious.
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
So
Yeah.
sorry for my
So,
little
yeah,
side
so-
my little side jaunt there, but
Country music is having a renaissance. Tacoma's having a renaissance.
well, I am going to see a country music techno show in Tacoma. Okay. I mean, that's great. All right, Alan, what else? A long career such as yours, aside from technologies that that made such a huge impact, like where do you think things are going? Like what's the hot topic now? I know that you're going to have, somebody filling your shoes soon. What kind of advice would you leave them as, I don't know, let's say it's somebody new to your role or somebody who has only had a couple of years in school district administration? What kind of parting advice would you leave? What would you write on the letter and leave in the desk for them?
Oh, good question. At North Shore, we're big enough that we're blessed to have staff. Not enough staff, but we've got staff. And I would say the biggest thing is, like I said earlier, get good people, support them, stay out of their way, give them guidance when they need it, give them forgiveness when they need it, give them room to grow and support them. My job has kind of stopped being technology quite a while ago. It's a lot of policy, a lot of governance sort of stuff, a lot of clearing things out of ways. It's working on budgetary stuff, but you invest in your people. I mean, that's what you need to do and make it possible for them to do good things. And when you find good people, hold on to them and make it an attractive place for them to stay. I mean, at North Shore, we've always, from the time I got there, talked about mission, talked about the importance of what we do. In technology, you can always find a job doing something someplace, but it's not necessarily going to be important work, right? I mean, education is important work. If you're not finding something of value to do, working in education, I just think you're not looking hard enough because there are important things that you can be working on, and that's very fulfilling. I mean, you got to take care of your basic needs first, right? Take care of your family, take care of your home, make sure you got enough to eat, make sure you're healthy, but then you want to do important work that makes a difference, and you're going to find that in education. So we talk about that a lot at North Shore. The idea that what you're doing by making sure that these wireless access points are up and reliable and functioning and they're available makes a difference in whether you've got some kid who's just come into the district from Portugal or someplace, and they're trying desperately to learn math and English at the same time, whether that kid's going to be successful. That is a very short thread that connects those things. So I would say talk about and then celebrate the importance of the work you do, support your people, don't shy away from the mission. Don't act like what you're doing is beeps and boops. I mean, it's important stuff that could potentially change a kid's world in a positive way. And that's a great thing. So, and also, try to have fun, keep people accountable and give them space.
Alan, did you develop a consistent look, like a raising the eyebrow, or like on the days when your team should just like avoid you and not ask any hard questions?
Yeah, I don't think it that. I think anybody who works for me could tell you that I have one eyebrow and a protruding brow, and when I get a glare on, it's pretty good glare. I don't think people wonder when I'm annoyed. I think it's pretty obvious when I'm not having the best of times. I think it's pretty obvious. So yeah, I don't feel like I need to say a lot. People can look at me and tell if I'm not thrilled.
I actually think it's kind of an underrated leadership skill, right? Like being able to be well, I mean, seriously.
Being pissy and grumpy?
No, so let's not go to extremes, but that idea of what feels worse to me is when you have someone sitting there with you who you think is with you, And then either A, you find out afterwards that there's like
Yeah.
completely not with you, or worse, you find out from other people, right? That instead of tackling it directly or showing the skepticism, to use a softer word, like convince me, tell me more, make a case. I'm not impressed. If you, for those of us old enough who remembers the Michaela was not impressed Olympics year and the wonderful meme that followed, I do think there's some authenticity and some important work that gets done there instead of not being able to have the hard conversations or ask hard questions in the moment. It's not a perfect science, but
I take your point. I do think, and again, these are questions that you can better ask people who have worked with me. I don't like saying worked for me because they don't work for me, right? Worked with me is that I do try to be honest. I think personally it's better to tell people what you believe to be the truth, whether it turns out to be the truth or not. You believe this to be the truth rather than shine them on about something. And I hope that people appreciate that. And I do think that at times I'm probably a little too candid with what I'm thinking of, because I do tend to lean into the idea of, if somebody asks me what I'm thinking, I feel like it's important to tell them. I expect people to be grown-ups when the moment calls for it, to have serious conversations when it's time to have a serious conversation, and then not get your feelings hurt. I mean, it's unavoidable. I mean, sometimes somebody's going to tell you something that they didn't mean to hurt your feelings get hurt. But the intent matters, right? And I don't think I try to hurt people's feelings. I just try to be candid with them about things. I think we've all seen Ted Lasso, right?
we have.
There's a Dutch soccer player in the last season who is brutally honest with people about stuff. If you remember that, I'm half Dutch, and when I saw that, I thought, yeah, that's how it is. I mean, if somebody's doing a terrible job, I'm going to tell them, you're doing a terrible job. I think you can do better, but right now, what you're doing is it's not working. But you can do better. But what you did, not acceptable. So let's do better.
I do want to touch. Sorry, yeah, Alan, are you ever wrong?
Were you ever the one that was wrong?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, I've made mistakes. I mean, you guys asked me to be on this show, and I said sure. And what a disaster.
I thought you were just going to point out that Anna just is the only one who gets to say that you're wrong.
No. She's not the only one. I have brothers. I have children. I have family. I have so many people who lay in wait to tell me I'm wrong about stuff, and I try not to disappoint them.
Well, so just so you know, the reason I've been looking off to the side is that Rachel gave me a pile of old ACPE pictures, and I have them in Google Photos, and I've been going through them. I have seen so many pictures of you with that look that you described, where you're just kind of you've got that look, but for the life of me, I can only find ones where you're smiling.
What?
I know, exactly.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I guard the photos well.
Yeah.
But I do want to come back to one thing that you said.
The picture of me and Ellen Dorr that Ellen's got someplace where you see the look. It's Ellen.
That might be the one I'm thinking of, quite honestly.
We may have made a sticker of it.
But coming back to leadership, because that's a big thing for me too. Alan, for our audience, Alan pointed something out that is probably the single most important thing that I look for, or I listen for and correct myself on when I'm looking for future leaders. And that is that people don't work for you. They are not your employees. Yeah, and people who use that term or use that phrase, it's my employee, it's my this or my that. Always sets me on edge a little bit, and it always makes me take a second look at, will this person be a good supporter and a good leader? And maybe, but out the gate, it's not an ownership thing.
For me, it's a little bit about, like, I'm conditioning myself to always think of the idea that we're working together on things. You're not subservient to me. You're not serving me. We're working together. So even if I trust that people know what I would mean if I'd say it was like my staff, I don't say that because it's just, I think it's a good practice. It's similar. I never refer to the district's money as my money. It's not my budget. It's not my dollars. It's the district's money, right? I manage it for them, hopefully in a responsible way. Not my money. Not my money, not my staff. We work together. It's the district's money. And I think it's just, for me, it's just like a helpful reminder of how it all works. And I had a boss, a mentor at one point, Dan Vaught, which only a couple of people on this call will know who that is, that worked for North Shore. And he was adamant about that. Like, he would stop people in conversation if they were talking about my money, my budget. They say districts, it's the district's money. You manage it for them. Let's find good solutions here. We're not going to say we're going to protect our budget. It's the district's budgets. We're going to do good things for kids with these dollars, wherever those dollars come from. And it's just, just checking yourself.
We're stewards of public resources and people's children.
Yeah. And I think, if you can really get yourself into that head of that is really noble work to do public service, I think you can find a lot of joy in working in education in particular. I mean, I don't know. The mission is just so good.
I mean, we are not here for the money. We are here because we believe in what we do.
Yeah. I mean, if somebody wants to give me money for it, that's awesome.
Sure. Well, back to we want what
I'm
I
not
believe.
a hippie. I'm just.
We believe in living wages and folks being able to care for their families and keep a roof over their head and keep the food in their bellies. So, Alan, we've talked a bit about what has come before and in technology and in leadership. And I just want to also acknowledge that you really took a starring and lead role on student data privacy, not only in the Pacific Northwest, but also nationally. And I know that there's continued conversations as we move into the AI space. We could almost have a whole other episode on AI, and
we probably should.
And from first of all, the privacy side of things, but also the just headlines in the past couple of days of the media companies and artists and libraries saying, no, we need to get compensated for the ingestion of millions of terabytes of data to be used then for something for sale by someone else. So it's going to be really interesting to watch this space.
Yeah,
so
it will be.
Speaking of that, Alan, though, thinking, I call it future casting. And I think your initial response was, what the heck is future casting?
It's not a word, Rachel. It's called looking ahead.
Or looking ahead.
Yeah.
Looking ahead, to use good plain words. If you were to cast,
you're from Indiana. Let's be a little
bit
more middle America.
We use casting, fishing. It's so if you were casting out 20 years from now and you were hosting this podcast with a couple of leaders who were getting ready to retire after a couple decades long career or more, what do you think the stories they might tell would be? Like, what do you think is coming at us in leading with technology?
Well, good Lord. I don't know. I'll tell you exactly not what we're thinking it's going to be. That's the one thing I've learned within technology. Whatever you think is going to be the big thing, that ain't going to be big. It's going to be something else. We were all crazy about MOOCs for a while. It's not a thing. It was a dumb idea, and it's still a dumb idea. Anyway, I mean, what's the thing that I think will be? Well, I do what I hope is going to happen. How about we do that instead? Here's what I hope we're talking about: is how technology has enabled differentiated education for kids. We talk about that all the time, but it boils down to one teacher, maybe a couple paraeducators in a room, can't possibly differentiate the education and give every single kid what they need in the classroom. You end up focusing either on the large middle of things, or maybe the middle and some of the kids who are sort of fun to work with because you can do some different things because you got to have a good time. And then kids who need additional help too often get left behind because it is just flat out too hard to differentiate education in the way that every kid needs it. Technology gives us the opportunity for that, right? We're not going to have one teacher per every kid. You can't do that. So, hopefully what we're going to come out of this is better differentiated, just in time, at the kid's pace, helping them move, help diagnose what does that kid need and then deliver that to them. That's what we get. I would hope more emphasis on that, less emphasis on summative assessments of kids so that we can make graphs of things and say, hey, congratulations, we did an awesome job, when really we're failing the same kids over and over again, right? I mean, districts that have 95% graduation, I can almost guarantee you they're still failing the same kids over and over again. Even if they got great graduation rates, predictably the same kids are failing over and over again. And we got to find a way to solve that. And I think the way to solve that is through tech. Maybe through AI can help us with that. But we got to put focus on it. And I think we focus too much on convenience and expediency and not enough on working hard on things and really celebrating just the accomplishment of working hard and figuring out difficult tasks. I mean, that would be another thing that I would pass on to a new leader coming in the organization is celebrate hard work on things and really digging into a problem and figuring a difficult task out, and surround yourself with people who like to work on projects like that, hard projects, and not so many people who just want to get splashy things out there in a hurry. There's enough people who want to do that. You won't need to look for people who want to do splashy things in a hurry, but surround yourself with people who want to work hard on difficult things.
Wise words.
And I think to add, I'm not saying this is what Alan's thinking, but it made me think about the fact that as digital technologies evolve, the cornerstone of those digital evolutions has been communication. So if we think back to some of our first interactions of an internet connected device, I was at PLU and we used UW's Pine Mail, their email system.
Yeah.
And that was like, what am I going to use this for? You know, what would I ever use an electronic mail system for? And they forced us to talk to our professors through email. And every evolution that's coming it seems to be so centered around communication, whether it's the fact that we now carry a mobile device in our pockets and we use it for everything. Again, I've joked that I could leave my wallet at home and I'll keep driving. If I leave my phone at home and I'm halfway to work, I'm turning around.
Gotta go back.
I think that at least for me, some of the more upcoming, I don't know, evolutions of a future tech or whatever it is, could be around making it easier for people of different cultures, different language speakers, things that it's going to level the communication field even more than what we currently see. So we start picking up on those gaps we have in our system. You know, we're a student, like our keynote speaker, Sylvia. She was talking about how she didn't speak the greatest English. She got put in a class and the teacher just assumed she was, for lack of a better term, not very intelligent until she actually was able to show what she could do. I think we see that a lot with students who are ELL, and they're perfectly fine learners. They just have a language barrier. And, you know, how do we overcome those language barriers, and how can we do it in a way that isn't overly cumbersome or just not there yet? And I think that's where we're going to see enhancements in communication technologies that are going to have a massive impact on our schools and our students.
Yeah, I would agree, Mark. I mean, that's you're seeing amazing things happening for kids and for families right now in easy to use translation tools, and that's really the families who come here and can't speak English love their kids just as much as anybody else does, right? They want to advocate for their kids. They want to be able to go to the school and have conversations with families. But if the language barrier is getting in the way, then they don't have that same opportunity. So you get a translation tool in there, and it's a different world now for those folks, and that's a great thing. And I think people recognize that. I'll just share that this year North Shore got a $10,000 grant from EduPoint. We're partners for life for Synergy Student Information System. A lot of us use, and so we get $10,000 check. Right, that's nice to get that. Easy thing to do would have been plow it back into the general fund, but probably wouldn't have made a whole bunch of difference. Right. $10,000 is a lot of money. It's very generous, but it doesn't make a huge dent in our budget. What it does make a big dent into, and we got a group of kids together that helped us figure this out, was what do we want to use these dollars for that's going to make a difference to kids in the classroom? And kids said, over high school kids that we were working with on this, said more of those translation tools in the buildings, get more of those pocket talks and these things available to schools, because that makes a huge difference for kids in the classroom. And so that's what we did with it. And that was a great way to spend $10,000.
I agree. So what prompted this question was an episode before now. Mark dropped into the conversation that a colleague of his is pretty firm on the idea, like cell phones will be required in school because that will be the delivery mechanism for learning and services. And I remember chiming in and saying, I can totally see this, because I started my career not 33 years ago in education, but 20-ish years ago now in education. And just the change from the single computer in a classroom that was used for Pine Mail to devices that are really changing access to information for students. I can see the phone being the device. And I think of it in two different ways. And one is what you just touched on, Alan, with the tools that are built in these devices that are actually changing our ability to communicate in meaningful ways and to access information when and where we need it, instead of having to go to a library. I'm a the world's biggest fan of libraries, but having to have a car and be able to drive to the library and hope that, you didn't need that information when the library was closed is now at our fingertips 24/7. And there's a second piece that we were talking at the beginning of this segment about, kind of what's coming at us. And you were talking about essentially really changing lives of students and really differentiating, right? Getting closer to true differentiation. I completely agree with you and would add that one of, I think, the best ways that we can change a child's life is having really good teachers. And as you mentioned, we're not really funded to do that at scale, where you have pods of 5 to 10 students with a really good teacher beside them. And so I think there's promise in the phones, and it'll be neat 20 years from now to sit here and have this conversation and see if it came true around how to amplify the best of teaching and reduce some of the administrivia and some of the burden that takes teachers away from just sitting with kids in small groups and one-on-one when they need that additional support, whether it be for a specific hard task that they're learning or just that day where they need kind of help learning how to be a human being and a good partner in a classroom. And so my optimistic and positive side on this is really that differentiation, but just using a little bit of different language around how we amplify the best of teaching.
Well, there's a lot in what you were just talking about there. I mean, some of which I agree with, some of which I don't agree with, some of which I'd like to modify a little bit. I'd say
Sure.
that, yeah, there's a lot of truth in that. I'd say there's a lot of appropriate apprehension and concern about kids having access to the phone the whole time. I'd say so, and I think that's a real thing. I think that we need to recognize the blessings and the curse within the same device. And I think they're both abundant. And I think we're starting to get a little serious about that, but we need to move, we need to keep pushing that forward. So I think, I think the phone, the mobile device, I think that's got great potential. I would say we got to fight our tendency to value convenience over everything else, which we do as people. Convenience is the most important thing. We can say whatever we want. People will do what's easier and less motivated to do otherwise. And I think we've got to be smarter about how we use those devices, but there's great potential there.
Yeah. Water flows, right? Water will find its way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
And so I agree with you. We've got work to do. We've got work to do. And I'm old enough, Alan, and in that episode that maybe you'll listen to one day in your dotage and retirement, I'm old enough to remember when we were worried about students having access to the internet at all and the damage that it may or was causing or situations it was creating. And then when we started talking about sending devices home with students.
And I'm still worried about that. And I'm still worried
Right?
about those things. I mean,
Absolutely.
honestly,
And we should be.
I'm still worried about those things.
We should be.
We give we open up. I think I've changed my vision or my view on these things over the years. Is I think that kids and adults, they need more guidance, more digital literacy, more instruction, more help with what's beneficial and good that's out there, and also how to have skills to avoid things that are just like, you don't need to be saying these things. I think that we need to get more realistic about those things without, again, swinging the pendulum too far in the other direction. There's a lot of hard work out there that needs to be addressed. I think so. This part probably going to get rambling a little bit. I would say that AI is a great example of something that we are so quick to be pushing. I think, first of all, I think AI is going to be game changing, but I think we are pushing it out too fast without enough thought. There's such a rush to be not left behind in the market that we're releasing what's basically alpha and beta level products out there that haven't had good thought go into their release at this point. And we're just pushing these things out without thinking through. We've got some vendors that we're dealing with right now that are just pushing horrible products out right now under the auspices of this is good for kids. And I think we need to be more thoughtful about these things, which is not to say I'm a Luddite. It's just, I'm always for people being more thoughtful about what they're doing.
Is that how you pronounce that word?
What's that?
Luddite? I thought it was a Luddite.
Yeah.
Is it Luddite?
I think it's either. I think it's either or. Either or. I think. I don't know.
Well done, Alan Miedema.
Yeah, I did the best I could there.
What you did there.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't either. I was honestly asking the question.
Well, let's get Thomas Richards on here. He's overly pedantic about stuff. He'll tell us.
We'll make a bet.
All right. Well, we've let Alan wax poetic for quite some time now. I've known Alan for a lot longer than I've been on the board, and I always enjoy my time with him. We joke around a lot. I've, rarely have met a person with as good a sense of humor as Alan that can come off as dry and just stoic while making you laugh constantly. And I've absolutely appreciated getting to spend some time on the board with him as well. And yeah, we're going to be very sad to see you go. But if you show up, we're probably going to kick you out of the conference.
That's fair.
We'll have
That's
bouncers
fair.
at the door.
Yeah.
So I do have
That
a
makes
serious
sense.
question for us to end on, Alan.
Mhm. Okay.
So as you consider your retirement options, are you considering mink farming?
I've already done the mink farming. I'm not going to do it again, but I did do it before. I just specifically did not mention that when I said what I was doing the year that I wasn't in school, that I was doing. Not mink farming, by the way. It's mink ranching. You farm produce. You ranch animals.